Commissioner. My name is Alex Linzer. I'm the Deputy Director of Elections for Hamilton County, Ohio. I'm an attorney by trade. Previously, I worked with you at the Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah.
And then I moved over to the Board of Elections about 3 years ago and have been serving as Deputy Director ever since. So this will actually be my first presidential election in the chair, though the legislature has blessed us with multiple elections over the last 2 years, so I've got a few under my belt by now.
Wow. Now, tell me, what is are you the deputy or are you the director? I know it goes back and forth each presidential election.
So every job at the Board of Elections is duplicated. There is one Democrat and one Republican to fill each role. And so we have a director who's a Republican and a deputy director who's a Democrat. But in reality, we do everything together. Most of what we do is dictated by state law, but it does take two signatures to make any changes or any decisions around here, one from a Democrat and one from a Republican.
So going in, let me ask you this. There's first of all, let's give the dates of some important dates. The date of the election is what date?
November 5th. Of course, that's the last day you can vote.
Yes.
Before that, early voting will start on October 8th. And then the other big deadline everybody needs to be aware of is October 7th, which is the last day to register to vote.
Last day to register to vote is October 7th. Now, in Ohio, there is a new law with some new requirements for people to vote. And I want people to pay attention to this because I kind of run into people saying, well, I'm a senior citizen. I've been voting for 40 years. I don't need to worry about this. I don't need to pay attention to this. Or I've been, voting all my life, but I got married and I don't need to pay attention to this. They're talking to the new voters, the younger voters, the uneducated voters, not me. I've been doing it for 50 years, 40 years. But this is a new law that everyone should pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. This is probably the biggest change we've had to election law in the last 10 years in Ohio. And that is that if you are voting in person, we must have a photo ID. You have to present a photo ID in order for your ballot to count. And the law defines a photo ID as a passport, a driver's license, a state-issued ID by the state of Ohio, or a military ID. Anything else. We used to be able to use utility bills or letters from the government or other forms of ID. None of that is valid anymore. If you're voting in person, we need a photo ID.
Let me go back to that. The old way, you could take a birth certificate, you could take something, a utility bill, Duke Energy and all that. That is no longer. You now have to have, say those ones that you have to have.
A driver's license issued by the state of Ohio, a state-issued ID from the BMV, a passport, or a military or veteran's ID.
So y'all got that? Can't come in here with a Kentucky license and all that. You gotta have, it has to be Ohio. And those are the only ones that they're accepting. The only ones. So I want people to understand that is the only thing that will be accepted. Now let's get into the driver's license or the ID. People have asked me, their ID may have their middle name, but their registration may not have the middle name. What does that mean under these new laws?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is the poll worker has to be able to tell from the ID that the name on the ID is the same person that's in the registration rolls. So if you go by your middle name, like if your name is William Scott Smith, and you go by Scott Smith, if we have that middle name in the voter registration, the poll worker is going to see that, and that's going to be okay. But if the name Scott is nowhere in your voter registration, that could be a problem. So you might want to go online to votehamiltoncounty.ohio.gov and check your registration and just make sure that the name you go by is in there.
Gotcha. We are saying you must do double. I'm promoting double checking because you just double check. It doesn't take but a few minutes, and you can go to, what's the website again?
votehamiltoncounty.ohio.gov.
VoteHamiltonCounty.gov. Because I was looking at that, I'm like, I have on my license because they got the new license so you can travel, and they've got my middle name spelled all the way out for the first time. So that was the question I was concerned about too, because I said, hey, my license is Alicia Michelle Reece, but I go by Alicia Reece.
Yeah, in that case, that would be fine.
Yeah.
It just has to be close enough. So, if the name that you're registered as doesn't match your license at all, that's when you need to fill out a new registration card.
Gotcha. Now, what about signatures? We had a question. I know Jackie Edmerson, who is Von Hill Community Council president, who votes all the time, said this was the first time she had to sign her name 3 times. Is the signature an issue with the new ID law?
The signature verification has always been a part of voting in person. I think the issue sometimes is when you're signing on an iPad, which is what we use to check your signature. A lot of people, they give their credit card signature, I like to say, where they don't put as much thought into it as they do when they're signing a legal document. And the Board of Elections, what we are comparing your signature to is the last document that you submitted to our office. So if that was a registration card or a vote by mail ballot, whatever the last document we got with your signature on it, that's what the poll worker's looking at. So usually that's a paper document. So we always tell people when you're signing that iPad, make sure you're using the same signature that you use when you sign legal documents, because that's what we're going to look for. And if it doesn't match exactly, the poll worker is going to ask you to try again. It's very rare for in-person voting that somebody would be forced to vote provisionally because of a signature mismatch. And especially now that we have photo ID, there's not a lot of question as to whether or not you are the person who you say you are.
Yeah, yeah. We're talking about voting and a new law to make sure you have all the proper documents when you go in. There's a new law. Those are just tuning in, and the new law has has some different rules than before. So someone asked, on your license, on your ID, you only do it every 4 years, but you may move. And say you moved, but your ID has where you are for 4 years ago, but you've updated maybe your address on the voter poll book. How does that work? Do those addresses have to be exact? Your ID and your registration?
The address on your driver's license does not need to match what's in the poll book. You should be registered to vote at the place that you currently live. So that you want to make sure that's up to date before the registration deadline on October 7th. But as long as your driver's license is currently valid, so when our poll workers look at your license, they're looking at 3 things. They're looking at the picture, the name, and the expiration date. And as long as all 3 of those things check out, you're fine. You do not need to go get a new license if you've moved and if your license is still valid.
Got you. And someone said, well, if you move, you would have to bring your license and a utility bill. That's not true, right?
Correct. All you need to do is make sure you register with your new address before October 7th. So make sure the Board of Elections has it. You can go online, register online, or you can come into our office and do it on paper. And I'm sure there will be lots of people out in the community registering voters this year too.
Gotcha. Now I got a voter registration form. Now, if you're changing your address, do you have to fill out this form, or are you able to do it online?
Both. You can do it by paper. The advantage to doing it by paper is you only need one form of ID to register by paper. So you can do it with your social security number or your driver's license number. If you want to do it online, you go to voteohio.gov, but you do need to put in both of those numbers. So you need a driver's license number and a social security number when you're registering online.
Okay, and this is what the form looks like. If you fill out this form, if they register someone to vote, this must be turned in within so many days, right?
Yeah, anybody who's out there circulating those forms has to turn them in within 10 days of you signing it, or the deadline to register to vote, whichever comes sooner.
Okay. So if you register someone to vote, get it in within 10 days. Otherwise, the person won't be registered. Or 10 days. But if you do it right before the deadline, you got to get it in by the last day to register to vote, which is
October 7th.
October 7th. Okay, now the other question that we have, let me pull up my questions because there were people who had questions. Purge. Is there a list of people that were purged and can you find it somewhere? I had that. There was a gentleman over his organization, the Prince Hall Masons. They're statewide, and they wanted to make sure if there people that are purged in their neighborhoods, they could maybe call them and alert them and say you need to re-register, or they could uh, try to register them. Is there a place where that information statewide is?
Yeah, so the Secretary of State oversees that process. And if you go to the Secretary of State's website, um, which is voteohio.gov, you can find that list and download all of the Ohioans who were purged. And then you can sort it. It's in an Excel document, so you can sort it by location. The way that process works is voters get tagged to be removed after a certain period of inactivity, or there are certain instances like if you move and you update your address with the post office, that might flag us to start your clock ticking. And once you get flagged, um, you have essentially 4 years. And if we don't register any voter activity from that person for 4 years, which means they don't sign a petition, they don't request a vote by mail ballot, or they don't vote in an election, then they'll be purged. So the people that just got purged, there were about 17,000 Hamilton County voters who were purged. Um, they didn't have any voter activity going back to before the 2020 presidential election. So if you're out there listening and you skipped the 2020 presidential election, you're going to need to check your voter registration to make sure you're still on the rolls. And if you're not, you can fill out a new registration form.
So double check. You've got to go and double check and give that website again at Hamilton County. You can double check.
Vote HamiltonCountyOhio.gov.
Okay. And then that's where statewide you can find the purge list to see if you're on it. But here in Hamilton County, you can also go to our website and type your name in, and it'll tell you if you are still registered. What's that website?
That's the same one, vote HamiltonCountyOhio.gov. And when you go, there will be a pop-up that shows up. The first choice will be check your registration. Click on that box, you put in your information, and you'll see if you're registered.
All right, very important to double check. Someone was saying about helping someone with disabilities, or someone with disabilities maybe can't sign. They can put an X. I wasn't familiar with that. Is that still allowable?
Yeah, so it's common, especially with people who are assisting, like elder parents, that they might need to assist them because they are having trouble signing their name.
Mm-hmm.
So we will accept an X as the voter's mark. The way that I recommend people do that is you have the voter mark the X. That needs to be their attempt to make their mark. And then in the space next to the signature, you write witnessed by and write out your name and then sign it yourself. So that is a legal way for any election related document for the voter to sign if they've lost the ability. And that we do see that fairly often.
That's important. People were asking me about that. And I think what you just said, get that information and do it that way. What if a person, for example, their original signature was when they were 18, maybe they're in their 70s, or they've gotten Parkinson's or something that, a disability in terms of their signature? What is your recommendation? Because we do have people who get diagnosed with different things throughout their lives, and it might change their ability to sign exactly like when they were 18.
Yeah, so we at the Board of Elections actually keep a record of every voter's signature every time you give it to us. So in your file at our office, we have every signature that you've ever given us back to you when you first registered when you were 18 years old. And we do see that a lot. People's signatures tend to change over time for lots of reasons. They change their name. We see young people start out with one signature, and then it takes them a couple of years to decide what their signature is going to look like. So whenever there's a controversy about a document in the office, we're looking back not just at your last signature, but at every signature you've ever given us. So we have a lot of reference material to make a match, and we're used to seeing signatures tend to change over time. They might get shakier over time. I will say if you have had like a stroke or some other medical event and you've had a sudden change in your signature, that would be a good time to come in and fill out. We can fill out a signature update form and get your new signature on file before the presidential election, so there won't be any questions. But we do train our poll workers to look for that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be an exact match. They're just looking to make sure it's close enough that they can confirm that it's the same person.
Gotcha. We're talking to Alex Linzer from the Hamilton County Board of Elections. We have an election coming up, but we have a new voter ID law. And so there's some changes for you to be able to vote. Some of the things you could bring last time to show are not accepted, not just in Hamilton County, but in the whole state of Ohio. And the forms that you're able to bring, I'm going to have him tell you again, because I know people get used to a habit of doing something and they kind of, it's sort of like a no-brainer. And sometimes we say, well, when did that change? So we want to make sure that you're updated and you're educated on what you're able to bring. What is it again, Alex, that you have to bring in order to have your vote exercised and counted?
If you're voting in person, you must have a Ohio-issued driver's license that is not expired, an Ohio-issued state ID card that is not expired, a passport, or a military or veteran's ID. And that does need to be a physical document with your picture and your name on it.
Absolutely. Now let's go back to expired, because I saw an article where 8,000 statewide, I believe, were expired license. So tell us about that. That's very important. I think some people maybe accidentally sometimes, because it's 4 years, people say, oh, I forgot I didn't update my license.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's more unique about Ohio's version of the photo ID law is that the license cannot be expired. So if that expiration date has passed, if your birthday has passed and you haven't updated your driver's license and it's your renewal year, you need to get that done in order to cast your vote. Now, you could also use one of those alternative forms of ID, either your passport or your military ID, but not everybody has a passport.
Right.
When you go to the BMV and get your license renewed, they'll print out a piece of paper, and that's going to be your temporary license that you can use until you get the new one in the mail. That document does work for voting purposes, so you want to hold on to that if you go get your license renewed. And another part of the law was that the BMVs will provide a free state-issued ID. So if you're not a driver and you want to go get a state-issued ID, you can get that for free at the BMV.
That's very important. And you know, the thing about your license expiring, I mean, that's a little more common than when you think. And especially people are busy and it's 4 years. And I remember my birthday came up and I always remember the one to put on my tags. I got my tags done and forgot. I looked at, oh, this is my year I got to run back in there. And so you could kind of, because it's 4 years, it's not every year like the tags are. Sometimes you can forget unintentionally because it's been 4 years. You got your license, no big deal. So that is super important that you check your driver's license and make sure that this is not your year for renewal of your license, so that you don't get your vote thrown out because you forgot and did not update your license. Let's talk about this free state ID. You said you could go to the BMV, I guess, and you have to bring some paperwork, I would assume. But how do they know it's free, or how do you do it?
My understanding is you just show up at the BMV and say, I need a state-issued ID card. They are going to need some paperwork. I don't have that list in front of me, but a birth certificate is one of the most important pieces of that information.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you got to pay a trip to your local Department of Health first to make sure you have one of those.
Yeah.
So the process can be, there's a lot of steps.
There's some steps.
But it is free of charge. You just go to any BMV and they should be able to provide that to you.
Yeah, and let me say, in Hamilton County, with our 513 relief bus, partnering with the health commission, you could get a free birth certificate at the 513 relief bus. So we're trying to reduce any type of barriers, but you could go in the BMV and get a state ID, and you need to do all this before, in my opinion, before the deadline for voter registration and all those things. So if there's anything you work out, you've got some time to try to work it out. Now, what about college ID?
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the that really gets tripped up by the photo ID law. If you are an out-of-state college student, you want to maintain your Ohio driver's license to make sure you can vote in Ohio. A lot of times when young people first move here from another state, that's something you don't have to do right away. You can get by with your old driver's license for a while, but not for voting. We can't accept a driver's license from another state. So if you're a young person, you just graduated college and you moved to Cincinnati, welcome. It's time to go get a new license so you can vote. The one exception to the photo ID law, though, is voting by mail. So if you are in a situation where, for whatever reason, you just can't get a hold of a photo ID, you have mobility challenges or something like that, you can vote by mail and you can still use your driver's license number or your social security number as your form of ID with a vote by mail ballot. So that's what I've recommended to college students, and then of course the elderly who might have trouble obtaining one of those Ohio ID cards.
Let's talk about vote by mail. I don't know if you have the form here, but there is a two-step process to vote by mail. Let's talk about it. I learned a lot more about vote by mail 4 years ago when the primary, because the state was shut down and the primary was all vote by mail from that point on, those who had not voted early. So I learned a lot about the process. It's a two-step process. Let's walk the people through it. How do you vote by mail?
The first step is filling out an application for a vote by mail ballot. Now, every registered voter in Ohio should be receiving one in the mail right after Labor Day. The Secretary of State is going to mail out an absentee ballot request form to every single registered voter. If you want to do it now, though, you can find them, you can pick them up from the Board of Elections, or you can go on our website, votehamiltoncountyohio.gov, and you can download the form. We do have to have a paper form, though, so you print that form out, fill it out. We need a form of ID, we need your address, your birthday, and your signature, and you send that form in to us. When it comes to us, we're going to look at all the information on that form, make sure it matches what's in our system. We're going to check your signature against our database. And assuming everything checks out, we'll put you in the queue to get an absentee ballot. Now, we can receive the applications now, but we can't start mailing ballots until October 8th after the registration deadline. So we will mail all the ballots, all the ballot requests that we get, we'll mail out your ballots on that first day of early voting on October 8th. So I do encourage people to get your request in early, because then you'll have the maximum amount of time. And, with the mail, you don't want to leave things to chance. So you want to give yourself plenty of time to get your ballot, let the mail bring it to you, and then you're going to have to fill out the ballot, put that in an ID envelope. You're going to put all your information on it again, and then drop that in the mail, and it needs to get back to the Board of Elections. It has to be postmarked by the day before Election Day. So that will be November 4th. Or you can bring it back to the Dropbox.
Which is what I highly recommend. Okay, I'm gonna go back because I want to do it a little more in slow motion. Everyone will receive a request for absentee ballots coming to your mailbox sent by the Secretary of State. If you don't want to vote by mail, you do not have to fill it out. So don't freak out about it. But if you want to, you have it. Or you could go to the Board of Elections and pick up the form. Now, organizations and people who are out here registering voters, you can also pick up that form and have it with you. You run into somebody, say, I want to vote by mail. You have a form, and it has to be filled out by them. You said two forms, or a form of ID. This one you can use your driver's license or just your social security. You don't have to have a photo ID.
Correct. You don't have to have a photo ID to vote by mail.
Gotcha. And then they have to sign it themselves, but the person can go over and drop it to the Board of Elections for them, right? Or does the person have to do it?
So anybody can bring the application back to the Board of
Right.
Elections.
Just the application. I want to say that. So you can take the application just like with the voter registration, and you can bring it to the Board of Elections. Then they will receive by mail after October the 8th the actual ballot, right?
Right.
And then when they get that ballot, they've got to fill it out themselves. There's 2 envelopes. The smaller one I call it, but you call it
The ID envelope.
the ID envelope. It has yellow with everything that has to be filled out. And they have to fill it out and they have to sign their own signature. Then you got the big envelope and you put the little envelope after you put your ballot in it. You must seal the little envelope, right? Can't be open, must be sealed. Then you put it in the big envelope, and then the big envelope has to be sealed, and that envelope is the one that goes back to the Board of Elections. Now, question. When you get the big envelope, if you want to mail it, who's responsible for the mail? The stamps.
The voter is responsible for the postage. That is a great point. When you get your ballot, there will be an insert in it, and it will tell you how many stamps you need. We don't know yet how many pages the ballot's going to be in Ohio, but there are a lot of issues in Hamilton County, and I'm expecting we could see a 2 or even a 3-sheet ballot.
Oh, wow.
A 3-sheet ballot, that's going to be a pretty heavy mail piece, so it's probably going to take more than 1 or 2 stamps in order to mail that back. So when you get your vote by mail ballot, it will include in it how many stamps you need to put on the envelope, and you want to look for that.
And you have to pay for it. But in Hamilton County, and I'm just talking about Hamilton County, we have a drop box that looks like a mailbox that Joe Mallory helped design when he was there, and I thank God for that because ours look very, very good, very secure.
Very secure.
You can drive and drop it in the box. No postage necessary. If you drop it at the Board of Elections drop box. Am I right?
Yep, the drop box is right outside our office. It's got a drive-through, and it's under 24/7 video surveillance. It's got a fire suppression system in it, so that is a very safe and secure way to make sure that your ballot's counted.
And it's 24 hours. You don't have to say, oh, the Board of Elections was closing. I didn't make it. As long as you get there before November the 5th, you can drop it in that box. And I recommend that because, like you said, you don't know how many stamps you got to have, which we will when you get there, but we can alleviate the cost of stamps by dropping it in the box if you can do that. Boy, 3 sheets. That's a lot.
It's we've got the state issue one is going to be a big constitutional amendment, and the county levies, and lots of local school issues and levies. Everybody wants to be on the ballot during a presidential election, so it could be a very long ballot this year.
Be a long ballot. So when will the Board of Elections? You can go to our website to see the ballot in advance. Talk about that so people don't get intimidated when they say go and vote. They're able to see a mock-up that they can take with them and maybe mock it up and be ready when they go to vote.
Yeah, we put a view my sample ballot tool on our website, and that'll go live for certain about 45 days out before the election, hopefully a little sooner. It's always tricky in years like this because we have ballot issues that can file at the very last minute. So the ballot is very much in flux up until about that 45th day. But that's when we start sending ballots out to military and overseas voters. And so the ballot has to be locked down by that day, and you can go to our website and check that out.
So on the website, you'll be able to hit the button, view the ballot, and you'll be able to view it before the ballot before you have to go vote. So you're not intimidated by, like you said, 3 pages. You won't be as intimidated if you get to see it kind of in advance.
Yeah, and you'll be able to see which races are going to appear on your ballot. And then, the state house districts have changed a couple of times over the last few years. So
Yes.
you'll get to see which state house seat you're voting on, which state senate seat you will be voting for.
That's important because this is a new shakeup. And this might be the first time you see these different numbers. And you say, I thought I was in this number, but I'm in this number.
Yeah,
But you'll be able to see this is based on your address. These are the people that you're eligible to vote for.
exactly. Yeah, my state rep has changed 3 times in the last 6 years. So
I know. I can't believe it's so hurtful for me not to have a 33rd. I'm like, "Oh, what? So yeah, it has changed. So you'll be able to see that and understand it ahead of time. Let me see what other questions. I know I had a lot of great. This is some very good information. Alex Linzer from the Hamilton County Board of Elections.
while you're looking for those, we mentioned organizations that want to help register people to vote.
Yes.
One of our new initiatives this year is our BOE Connect program, and that is a page on our website. If you go to votehamiltoncountyohio.gov and you click on the link that says BOE Connect, you can request a voter engagement toolkit, and we'll put together a nice little pack for you. It'll have voter registration forms, absentee ballot request forms. It'll have some flyers with information about the photo ID law, important dates and deadlines that voters need to know, and some other useful tools that if you want to put out a table at a community event, if you're a church and you're holding a picnic or something like that, you'll have all the information you need to help answer these questions for the people in your community. So I do encourage people to go to our website and put in a request for one of those toolkits.
That's really important. I'm encouraging all churches, all organizations, because you're having the meetings, people are asking you the questions. We want to make sure that you're knowledgeable. And I would encourage you to go and sign up and get this toolkit. And then I'm asking everyone to double check your ID. That's something we all can do. You can do it on your smartphone, you can do it on your laptop. Everyone, you could go to the Board of Elections. Let's talk about that. People can come to the Board of Elections. You got computers there and check their ID as well.
Yeah, we have public terminals that you can use to research our voter registration database. So you could definitely look yourself up there. If you don't have a computer at home or you don't have easy access to one, you can come in. And we'd be happy to check your registration for you. And if you need to make an update, we'll help you get that done.
The other thing, Alex Linzer from Hamilton County Board of Elections, you did a behind the scenes tour um, not too long ago, and you had organizations and people coming and you did tours, and I just want to commend you for that. Because a lot of times people don't, they just know the early vote center or they know drop it in a box, but they don't necessarily know um, everything about our board of elections, which is really well put together, well ran, and just wanted to highlight that. We just had a women and girls commission meeting out there, and someone was out there and said, I didn't know all this was back here, you know, and you've done a lot to try to outreach to the community.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation about elections swirling around out there, and we wanted to counteract that. So we started something we call Behind the Ballot. And it's actually open to any voter. Anybody who wants to can go on our website. I mentioned the BOE Connect link. You go to votehamiltoncountyohio.gov, look for BOE Connect. That'll take you to a page where you can sign up to go on one of those tours. And we're going to be doing several of them throughout the month of September during the day and during the evening so that as many people who want to do it can. And we'll take you back into our warehouse. You'll see how we program the equipment, how we test it to make sure that your vote is being recorded accurately, and all the other work that goes into making an election, actually happen.
Mhm. And then how do people connect with that if they want to get a tour and be a part of that?
You go to our website, hit that BOE Connect link, and you can sign up. There's a sign up sheet right there.
Okay, so you can get a tour and kind of see, what goes on with board of elections, and it's a lot more to it than a lot of people might imagine. Now we talked about the two names, but I got a question again. On the two names, if you're married but you're registered maybe on your maiden name, we saw this with, and she doesn't mind if I tell her, Angelita Moreno Jones, but in the system it was Angelita Moreno. She was unaware of it, got it corrected, early on and work with the Board of Elections to do that. But it just made me wonder, and others wonder, if you have those two names, is that something they should be concerned about?
So that's a situation where your name's changing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Generally, if your name changes because of marriage or divorce, it's a good idea to update your voter registration to reflect your new name.
Okay.
Now, if you don't get around to that, there's two ways that your vote could still count. One, if you bring legal proof of your name change with you when you come to vote, which would be a marriage certificate or a court order or some other legal document that has your old name and your new name on it. If you bring that legal proof with you and you have your photo ID, you will vote a regular ballot and it will be counted then and there. Now, if you don't have that documentation, you can fill out a provisional ballot. And as long as you fill out the provisional ballot form correctly, if the only thing that's changed is your name, that ballot will be counted and filling out the provisional form will have the effect of updating your name with the Board of Elections. So you got options.
Got options. You have
The best
options.
thing to do, because we still have time, the registration deadline is October 7th. So if you've been married recently, the best thing to do is to go in and update your registration now.
Very important. The other question is we talked about if you're purged, you have to re-register. So that is very, very clear. And then also we talked about the absentee process. The Board of Elections, tell people where we're located. Some may
Yeah.
not know.
Yeah, in 2017, the Board of Elections moved out to Norwood. And we're at 4700 Smith Road. If you're familiar with Surrey Square, we're sort of tucked around behind Surrey Square. We have a really nice facility there. And in 2020, um, we opened a new early vote center because with social distancing, the old office just wasn't big enough to make it work. But that new facility, which is it's literally across the parking lot from our main office, um, it was such a success in 2020 that our commissioners decided to um, sign a long-term lease for that building, and now it's a permanent fixture. And I do think that Hamilton County boasts probably the best early voting facility in the state, and you definitely see it in the numbers. We have higher percentage of early vote turnout than most of the other big cities.
Yes, I'm very pleased with it, and we were able to even partner and use it when we needed it during COVID for vaccinations. You partner with the Department of uh, Health, and it's just been great. Tell us about now. A lot of times people look at Cuyahoga County, Franklin County. Of course, we're the third largest, but Hamilton County has had the high turnout, early voting, etc. How do we really compare with those others? Are we percentage wise? Of course, they may have a higher number of citizens, but
Right.
I mean, Hamilton County? I just like to brag a little bit. We've been doing some things.
Yeah, Cleveland and Columbus are both looking at, they have about 1 million registered voters on their rolls. We're in third place with 600,000, but we're still the third largest county in the state when it comes to registered voters. That said, our early voting numbers are just as high, if not higher than theirs in some elections. And I do attribute that to, our Board of County Commissioners giving us access to that really wonderful space, because our early voting center is one of the most efficient in the country.
Wow.
We can process 800 voters an hour. We have 40 check-in stations open. So even when you come out, you might see a line out the door because it's going to be a busy year. Lots of people are going to want to vote.
Yeah.
But that line moves really fast.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people have gotten used to doing it that way. They've seen how easy it is. You can come and do it on your time. Tuesday is not always the most convenient day of the week for everybody. So the early vote center is open Monday through Friday, and during presidential year, will be open on the weekends, 2 weekends before election day.
Absolutely. So, what should we've got a lot of people, a lot of folks, churches listen to this show, and other organization leaders. What can they do? They can get the toolkit, be able to provide it for their members so they know what to bring when they vote, and then ways in which they can vote. Early vote, election day or vote by mail.
Right. And the toolkit has all of that, and it has this really handy chart. We call it the green chart. It shows you all the different ID requirements based on which way you're voting and the ID requirements for registering. So when you request an engagement toolkit for us, we give you everything you need to educate voters about all of their rights and how to exercise their right to vote.
Well, I love it. Let me hold this up. This is very good right here. And acceptable ways, voter ID, new law. We just need people to get the word out. I just don't want people, we can't reach every person. So we need people to tell your family members, your church folks, your organization folks, senior citizens, just let them know, because when you're doing something different, it takes time to get the word out. And so we just need everyone to help get this word out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got used to using your utility bill or your paycheck or your insurance card or something as your ID, and we can't accept any of that anymore. If you're voting in person, we need a photo ID.
Absolutely. And then the Saturdays that we'll be able to vote in person, you've got here, let's see, is that the 29th of October? I think it is.
It is the 26th of October.
Yep, 26th of October.
And the 2nd of November.
And the 2nd of November. And then we've got 2 Sundays.
Yes, 2 Sundays, November 3rd and October 27th. And on the Sundays, we're only open from 1 until 5 p.m. Saturdays, we're open 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So a lot of times on those Sundays, we start with a line because we don't open until 1, and a lot of times people don't realize that. So
right.
We end up with a little bit of a line. But like I said, we have a very efficient early vote center. Our staff does a wonderful job of keeping things moving in there, so the line shouldn't dissipate pretty quickly.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to come on Alicia Reece Soul Food to answer a lot of questions that people have. The more information people have ahead of time, I think the smoother it is. And with a new law, we need everybody letting people know it's a new law. It's not just Hamilton County, because I got that question too. Is it just in Hamilton County? It's the whole state of Ohio. Secretary of State's website you could go to find out all the purging if you don't live in Hamilton County, all over other counties. I had people ask me about that. And then also the ways that you can register to vote. So just, again, I'm very concerned. You're right about this. Cannot be expired. I like the way you circled that. That seemed to be the big hiccup, I would say, in the primary.
Yeah, that photo ID has to be valid. Now, it can be suspended as long as it's not expired.
Oh, okay, that's a good one.
Really important
because that's a big one. Because some people said, well, some people might have a suspended license and is no longer able to drive, but that's their ID. Right. And for a variety of issues, could be child support, what have you. They've got it suspended till they can pay up. They're working to pay it up, but cannot drive. But that's their ID. That is allowed.
That is a valid ID for voting purposes as long as the expiration date has not passed.
Wow. I'm glad we were gonna miss that. That's a big one.
I didn't want to get to the end of this show and not cover that. So I'm glad we got to it.
Yes, because I did get a lot of questions about that. Expired is just basically saying that this ID has expired and you got to get a new one. You suspend it, you can still vote as long as it's not expired, because some people said this is my only form of ID, and you can still vote. We were asked that question.
Yeah, good.
That's big. Great. Well, thank you, Alex Linzer from the Hamilton County Board of Elections, for coming on and answering these questions and setting the record straight on what you can have and what you can't have as it relates to voting. We talked about vote by mail, what that process is, voter registration, what that process is, drop it in the box and where that's located. And we hope we've answered a majority of all the questions that most of you have out there. And if you start early, you understand what the rules are, then I think you'll have a good voting experience, and you won't feel intimidated when you go vote or when you get the absentee ballot. I do have a question. If someone fills out a request for absentee ballot but does not decides at the end, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and early vote. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, if you put in the request uh, and you go to vote early in our early vote center,
Mhm.
you'll vote a regular ballot
Okay,
because we'll be able to verify that you have not returned that ballot.
gotcha,
We'll cancel the ballot, so even if you try to, it won't count,
got
and
it.
we'll give you a regular ballot at the early vote center. On election day, if you go to vote and you've requested one, we're going to have to ask you to vote a provisional ballot because we can't cancel it um, from the polling location. We don't have the ability to do that. So you'll vote a provisional ballot, and that'll come back to the Board of Elections, and we'll count that ballot once we confirm that we did not receive your vote by mail ballot back. If we get the vote by mail ballot back, that's the one that's going to count.
Gotcha. And last but not least, poll workers. I know we put out requests before other elections. Hey, people need poll workers. Um, if people are interested in being a poll worker, are you taking that now?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go on our website, votehamiltoncountyohio.gov, and you can sign up to be a poll worker. Our commissioners granted our request to give our poll workers a raise.
Yes,
So you're
they
going to
deserve it.
absolutely. They probably deserve more, but they're going to make $225 an hour. Or sorry, not that.
Oh Lord, I said,
$225.
wait a minute, I
for the
gotta
whole
leave
day.
where I'm at. How much again?
$225 for the whole day. You do have to come to a training class in advance. The training class is about 2.5, 3 hours long. And then you have to show up to the polling location on the evening before to help set up. And then it's a really long day on election day. You're there from 5:30 until after the polls close, and however long it takes to close up. So we really do appreciate the citizens who are willing to do that.
Absolutely. Now, with that being said, if you're going to be a poll worker, you need to vote early. If you want, you can't say, "Oh, I haven't voted. I got to go vote on election day."
Yeah, you could,
Mm.
but you might not be working in your polling location, so that might be challenging. Of course, we provide our poll workers with a vote by mail application so that they can vote by mail or they can vote early if they want to. A lot of them go vote early after they take their training class.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I knew I had to make sure I asked about the poll workers because people would ask me, "How do I be a poll worker?" So you could go on the website. Um, is everybody going on the website, or can they make a phone call?
Yeah, sure. You can always call us. It's 513-632-7000, and we'll take it from there.
All right. Well, you got all this information. This has been great information, Alex Linzer from the Hamilton County Board of Elections. Give the website out one more time so everybody knows what website we're talking about.
Yeah, the website is Vote Hamilton County, Ohio, all spelled out, votehamiltoncountyohio.gov. And I would be remiss if I didn't plug our social media. If you are on social media, make sure you are following the Board of Elections because we are always posting information about voting.
All right, thank you. Now, your vote is power. Don't give it up. And how do you not give it up? You've got to make sure you've got all the right tools to vote. So you have everything you need to know about the new um, voter ID law. And you can call the Board of Elections if you have any additional questions. Okay.